Hi, welcome to Coaching tutorial. My name is Samzat. In this tutorial video, we will be looking at development of a simple website, our Hi app that we have been developing, and we are going to include a simple form, and we are going to have our server side whereby the form is going to be processed. The sort of processing we want to do is verification. We want to verify every details to ensure that all fields are being filled and they match the format we want. Verification can be done at front end, but this time around we are going to use both the front end and the back end verification. Now to start with, now I endeavored to create some more folders like the CSS folders and the JavaScript folder. Those folders are being created under web pages, so you could just create web new, then from there you can click on folder and you can create any folder. So such folder would be a child of web page use folder. Now having done that, I decided to create CSS folder because I want to put some bit of CSS rules into my front end, and I decided to create JS folder too, JavaScript folder too. However, I also created the address.html. How do I do that? It's simple. Just come to the web pages, create new and HTML, such, name it anything, then give such HTML any name you like, then you should click on next and so on. Then the location is inside web pages. You could click on finish if you like, then it's going to create it. Please be careful. Address.html and index.html, they are direct child to web pages. They are not grandchild, so that means they are not inside any of this folder. Let me collapse those folders so you can see. So now, and I prefer using VS Code for my front end development, so I'll close it up and reopen so that you can actually see how it's been done. Once you launch your VS Code, you could just click on new open file, then I'm going to try to locate those files. So mine is inside document NetBeans project, then iApp, then inside my iApp I go to my source, and since it is a main program, it's not a test program, then it's not a class, it's a web file. So I'm going to come to web app, and you can see what I'm saying, that address.html and index.html, they are not inside any folder other than the web app folder. They are direct child to web app folder. So I'm going to click address.html, and in that way again I'm going to open the CSS folder and address.css. so I'm going to open that too. Now in order to save time, I've actually written the code, but I'll walk you through the code, and we still have some other things to add, which I'm going to make a life hard into it. So now that we have done that, let's look at our HTML code to start with. In our address.html, I don't know if you are familiar with it, it's HTML5. So we have our HTML tag, which is the first tag and the closing tag, then followed by we have our head tag. And inside our head tag we link the CSS file into it. Be careful on how I actually link the CSS. Now I use this relative URI, so CSS folder / address. Why do I do that? It's simply because both CSS folder and this both CSS folder and this HTML file, they are both in the same parent folder. So Since I'm here, a little bit, since I'm here and I actually want to refer to something that is inside this place, so because both this folder and this file, they are both inside web package, that is why I actually specify the folder, then the file I'm going inside, I want to access. So that's why you see me saying css/address.css, because I actually want to access this address.css. Now inside this address.css is just a piece of css rule targeting the body background color as white smoke, and the section tag of id form to be of width of 50%, that is half of the page, half of the device width, client device width. Then my margin left and margin right should be set auto, which symbolically means 25%, so that the whole form can be centralized. And that's what I'm kind of saying. This is what I'm kind of saying. So irrespective of my device width, the whole form looks centralized. Not this, I'm not talking about this form, but I'm talking about this rectangle you are seeing here, this box you are seeing here. Yeah, so that's it. You can see that the distance between here to this side is 25% of the page. Distance between here to this side is 25% of the page, automatically gotten. Then this to this, the width of this form field is actually 50% of the device width. So that's what this CSS is all about. So now coming to the HTML again. Now inside my body there is only one section and is an ID of form. Inside that section tag we have a child tag called form. Now the child tag called form, inside that child tag which is form, before you in HTML when you want to create form you need a form tag, so there is no two ways about it. So now inside that we have another child tag called legend, called field set rather. Now the field set is to actually enclose the form. When you use field sets, it's going to create a rectangular enclosure to the form, kind of making it to be more beautiful. Okay, let me change this thing to white so you can probably see what I'm saying very well. So let me change it to white. Okay, let me change it to white. You can probably see what I'm saying very well. And then okay, let me reload. So now once white is being applied, you're going to see what I'm saying. Okay, now the white background is applied. I think you can see this rectangle right now. That is the field set rectangle. So now I need a legend. The legend is actually to give my form a topic. So if you are using a legend tag as a child tag of field set, the effect is going to give you is this rectangular enclosure, putting the legend almost within the rectangle but not right inside the rectangle. A fanciful way of letting you know that the title of this form is membership address form. So now I'm going to just remove this address. I'm saying membership form, and now I am actually using table to kind of organize the form so that it can be in rows and rows and rows and rows, so there will not be, it will not be like a scattered form, and I don't have to be using break to put each of the form item line by line. And the beauty of it also is that it makes it more decent. So that's why I'm using table. And if you are very familiar with table tag always have table rows tag, and inside the table rows you can have at least one table data tag to represent columns. So these are the rows: table row, table rows, table row, table row. Let me widen it up: table row, table row, table row, table row, and these are the what? Table column. So which are the table data? Table data representing the column. So the column. So now I'm having, for each table role, I'm having my table data to be labeled first name, and here last name, and inside this one middle name, and inside this one email, and I also have my date. Now After that, inside each table row as well, I'm having another table data which are the inputs. So this input will be the input for first name, and that is type of text. So the ID is F, small letter F, capital letter F name, and my name is almost the same thing as ID. Actually, it's my own personal like to always make my ID the same name as the form. It makes it easy for me to keep track of what I'm doing. So, and actually put required here. Now the function of this attribute required is actually to make a front end check to ensure that the form, that particular field, is not empty. Now for now I should remove required. For now I'm going to remove required in each and every one of it. So, and we're going to add it later, but once we remove it, it's not going to check it at the front end, so we'll solely rely on our server side checking now, which is what I want us to see first. Now this is to say that if my front end is empty, if my field at the front end is empty, it's not going to complain, it's just going to send the empty field like that. So, but that's not good. It's always good to put check for such. So now, having seen the front end code, and it's time we look at the server side code. So in the server side, I sort of created a servlet which is called address. You already know that servlet is a Java class as well, but I actually created it here by clicking on servlet, and give the servlet any name, and next and okay. Then when you probably get here, you should be careful about what you are giving the servlet name and the servlet URL. You should note them, then click on these to actually add it to the deployment description file and finish. Now, but I've done that procedure for address and I have it. Now the address had actually been edited a little. Now what have I done is this: I actually want to verify each and every data sent here to ensure that it is not empty. Now logically speaking, let's forget about Java now. Let's just ask yourself, if you want to confirm something is empty, what will you do? Empty means counting each of that field character one by one amounts to 0. Counting, for example, now if I count these characters in this field now, I'm having 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 characters here. It's not empty. But if you are to count this, there is no character to count, for God's sake. And since there is no character to count in that field, it is empty. So that is what we want to literally convert to, we want to program out. So that's what we want to code out. Now, but before we do that, another thing you should logically think is that I am forced to collect the data sent. Even if it is empty, something being sent to the server has to be collected first. Then let's check if it is empty or not empty. So now I'm going to first of all create my some field, some variables in my Java class, in my servlet, to temporarily store whatever I'm collecting so that I can work on it. And since it is personal to this address servlet, I'm going to make it private. Now, my name, my last name, my middle name, my email, my address, even my gender can be stored in string, but I prefer to store my date as type date, because date is actually a class in Java. Now, if you actually look at me, I'm using the same it's not a must, but just for easy sake, I'm using the same thing as my name. The same value given to the name is what I'm actually using here as my field. Now I have FL name, FF name, FM name, F address, F email, f date and f gender. Then I have my dates as well. Now, having created variables in Java are like memories to keep something. So having created those memory, I actually need to store into those memory. So I come to this side to actually get my parameters. Now, this method, this block of code is actually written. Can you see I've commented it out that method to get values from the form field at client side. Now, you probably know how to create a method in Java. So public void, because I'm not returning something, I actually want to run some lines of code. So I'm actually adding these two in order to give me access to the request object and the response object created by the server. Now, because I actually, what the client sent is being bundled to the request. So I want to fetch it from that. So upon every request, I'll be calling a method called getParameter, and I will be passing a string, and that string should be the name given to the form field, the particular name given to the form field, not the ID, the name. So if I come here, looking at the name, it's so funny, it's so easy now that my own name and my ID is the same thing. But in case if yours is different, you should provide the name from the name value as your string, because form has this nature. Form has name and value pair. Some form type doesn't necessarily have to be given an implicit value type. They're going to take their value from whatever the user inputs. Why some, the value has to be stated. For example, now if you are looking at the radio button, I actually stated the value. The value as male and female. So if you are clicking on male, it's going to send value of male to me, and if you are clicking on female, it's going to send value of female to me. However, text, this should just be text, not textorial. So however, text, email, date, form inputs are not, does not require specific value. They will naturally take their value based on what the user typed in and sent. So now I want to fetch that particular value. So I'm going to say request.getParameter, then I'm going to specify the form name so that it can fetch the value of the form name. And I'll pass the form name to this getParameter method as a string. So that's why I'm keeping it inside the FL name. Then I want to get that of the middle name, so I'm keeping it inside this. And I want to get that of the first name. I want to get that of the address, the email, the date, and the gender. So with this, I've fetched everything necessary from the request. Now, after this, I would like to check if what I've gotten is not empty or is empty. Now, simply because I want to dynamically generate a result telling the user if what he has sent is empty, and giving him the opportunity to be able to go back to the form and correct it. So that is why I am going to come to my process request now, the method to process the request. So coming to my process request, of course my process request also have two arguments, which is the request and the response object. Now then a try block, which I've already explained to you. This try block, print writer out response.getWriter, this try block will automatically close this out object of print writer after executing the content of the block. Finish, rather than having to close it manually. So, and I'm going to come to the fact that my out object is being used to, my out object is object of print writer, is an instance of print writer, and is being used to write out to the client. So I'm going to say out.println, and I'm going to send out HTML codes. So within those HTML code, I'm going to embed my own Java codes which I want it to generate results. So if I say out.println, then body, okay, I've written my doc type just like here, doc type, then if you actually see, I'm writing my HTML tag out, which is my HTML tag, and after that I'm going to write my head tag out. Then I'm going to close my head tag. Then inside my head tag is title, and what is the title? Servlet address. You can see. Then I am also going to set my but I'm going to write my body out too. Okay, now that's my body. Then of course I will have to close my body. I have to close my body tag, so that should be almost the last thing. Then I'll close my HTML tag. Now within the body is this Java code which will generate my dynamic results. So is this Java code. Now if you are looking at this Java code now, which is right within the body, now I execute the get parameter method, which was the same method I created downstairs, down here, the get parameter method, so that it can fetch me during the processing of the request. It can fetch me all the values that accomplish each of the form field. It can fetch me their values into distinctive memory, then I can from there process. So after that is a logical statement saying that, okay, if my f name, that means the value that accomplish this field, this form type, which is my first name, so that means this value, the value that accomplish this, should it be 0, or that accomplish my FL name, and my FL name is this FL name, and that is that of the last name, and which is this, or the one that accomplished that of my middle name, FM name, which is this FM name, and that's for the middle name, and at the client side is this. If any one of them is empty, that means if any one of them, counting the characters present in the value, if it is 0, then you should out inside the header, print out inside an header tag. Can you see header 2? Print out inside an header 2 a statement. Between the header 2, print a statement that says please ensure none of the name fields are left blank. You should note that I actually did concatenation here. Less than h2 greater than is a string on its own, then less than slash h2 greater than is another string on its own, then in between those strings I actually concatenate using the plus sign and a string that says please ensure none of the fields are left blank. Now then I actually create another anchor tag. I actually create an anchor tag, which in between it I put a statement back to form. Then I used an absolute URL telling the exact URL of the form I want you to go back to. So then you should note that I am using escape character here, which if I don't use it, it will confuse this particular double column to the closing double column this, and whereas the actual closing double column of this is this. So that is why I'm kind of use escape character here, and at the same time I'm using escape character here before this double column, so it can treat it differently. So now let's just check that side. Let's test this logic part if it actually works at first. So everything is filled. Okay, then let me kind of submit. Oh, okay, sorry, it's still processing the required CTRL. So now please ensure none of the fields are left blank, and that is exactly what is here. You know, the title servlet is processed as well, servlet address, then it's checked, it got all the parameter, then it's actually discovered that 1 or 2 or 3 of those test conditions actually passed. Then it tells me that okay, go back and make your correction. So I can click on back to the form and it's going to take me back to the form. Then I can actually correct. Then now let's look into the other one, which is the address. Okay, if this doesn't work, if this is being processed and it is found to be false, that means none of those 3 fields under test actually has empty character. Then else, if my f address .length equals to 0, what's my f address? My address is actually this address field, and where is that? My address field, which is this, my address field. If my address field is also empty, you should tell me that okay, please ensure to fill in your address. Let's test that. So if I put this to be okay, let me fill this, and this is my name, okay, an email of this email address, personal email address. Then let me pick the date. Now then let me leave this open and let me just say I'm email and submit. Now it's going to tell me please ensure to fill in your address. Then I will have to go back and fill in the address, then fill the form and ensure the address is being filled. So if I fill in the address properly, it should accept it down. And sorry, this is Adewale, and this is 3, then this is the date, whatever the date is, then this is plot, okay, then I'm email. Then if I should submit, and it should tell me congratulations, you are now a member of High Community. Now how do I achieve that? It's simple. After, just before moving to this section, which is telling me the congratulations, I actually checked my date. And what about the date check? I created a method called date check, and that is a method which I actually use to check. Now let's ask ourselves a question. There are different type of ways of writing dates. It even differs from browser to browser. In this case, because I'm using the date form, there is input type of date. Please, input type of date. Now input type of date, and that is why you actually see that is actually using this date form. The way it presents the date input in a form is kind of different from browser to browser. If I'm to check this if I'm to use Chrome to actually check this, where is Chrome? Okay, seems Chrome is not around. Oh, sorry, since Chrome is not around. So let's say I use Chrome to process this. The way it's going to present the date input could be different, and since this differs from browser to browser, I would not like to store into my database different kind of formats. Then it's going to be logical for me to actually ensure that the request received, the date value from the request received, is formatted to the same type of format, so that while storing into my database, I'm going to have a consistent format of date, since date format differs from browser to browser. Now in this, Mozilla is using MMDDYY. In another browser it could be YYMMDD. In another it could be another way around. It could just be different kind of format. Now in order to do that, I choose to first of all check my date. Now How do I check my dates? Firstly, why am I using try block, and how do I know I am supposed to use try block? In order to check dates in JDK 11, there is a class called simple date format. I want to reformat my date. There is a class called simple date format, and let's kind of take a look at that. Now, this is a class, and the class has been around since JDK 1.1. Since JDK 1.1. So that means even if you are using JDK 8, you will still be finding this class there. It's not yet deprecated. Then, and simple date format, what does it do is that it's a concrete class. That means I can make an instance of it, and it allows you to actually format a date it allows you to format the date and pass the date. Now, it allows you to specify the format you want to use, then pass the date into that simple date format, so that that past date can actually be formatted using the specified format you have actually specified earlier. So I'm speaking Gibberish, but you understand soon. Now, these are standard letters for formatting. If you say M, if you say Y, it will represent year, and if you say capital letter Y, it will represent week year. So there's difference between small letter Y and capital letter Y. If you say capital letter M, it represents month in the year, and if I say capital letter M, it represents minute in hour. So if I say D, if I say capital letter D, it represents day in months, and if I say that small letter D, if I say capital letter D, it represents day in year. Take for example. So this letter format is very, very important. So now, okay, you could read all this yourself, but that's not where I'm going. So they kind of give an example of date and time pattern formatting. So I can say yyyy.mm.ddddd.g at this one kind of formatting is going to result to something similar to this, and this another kind of formatting is going to result to something similar to this, and another kind of formatting. But I want to use this type of formatting. I want to use this kind of formatting, mm/dd/yy. So I'm going to just come here and say, sorry, I'm just going to come here and say, okay, let me look at the method, let me look at the constructor. Since it's a concrete class, I can actually construct a simple data format using the default pattern and date format. But I'm not using the default pattern, and I'm not using default format, date format symbol. I actually want to specify my own pattern. So I'll be going with this constructor that allows me to specify my own pattern. And what did I want my pattern to be? I want my pattern to be mm/dt/yy. So I will be coming here again and say, simple date format. Then that's my date formatter. This can be anything you like. You can name it anything. You can name it gibberish. You can name it anything. But it's simply the object of date format. Then I can say new. Then call the constructor. Then pass in, as you can see here, I can pass in from the constructor a string which will represent my pattern. Now, in this pattern, if I say small letter YYY, then it will be meaning small letter YY is, small letter Y means year. Small letter Y means year. Y capital letter Y means week year. So I need small letter Y. Then that's why I'm using small letter Y, mind you. Then my small letter M, which simply means month. My small letter M means minute in hour, but and my capital letter M means month in year. So now, then I'm using my small letter DD2, which means day. So now I've actually created a simple date format object, which I've actually specified the format Now I need to pass in the date in which I want to format using the specified pattern. I've specified the pattern in which I want to use to format is why I create the date format object. Now I need to pass in the date itself that I actually want to format using this pattern. So now let me come to this. You would see here that I've actually gotten my date object from the request using the get parameter and specify my f date, and my f date is actually the name of the date input. Yes, you can see f date. So I've actually gotten that. So that's why I'm passing that f date inside it as the date gotten from the client, which based on the client browser it could be formatted in various ways. Then calling the pass format on this, and let's read from the documentation what the pass method does. So the pass method takes string and the pass method takes string and pass position, which is not a must. So I'm passing the string to it, and it worked. Then because simple date format throws exception, if you come in here, they actually tell us that simple date format actually throws exception, and because it might run into error while formatting, and once it runs into error, your program crashes. And we don't want our program to crash, we don't want our code to crash, so we have to do what we call error handling. We have to exception handling. We have to handle our exception. So now in handling the exception, okay, can you see it can throw a number of exception. It can throw null pointer exception, illegal exception, it can throw any kind of exception. So anything can happen, an exception can be thrown. So I will then come, that's why I come here and I actually try it. If you're very conversant with Java, you know the try and catch block. The try block will help you to put in that particular line of blocks of code which you felt might run into error. Now it might run into an exception. There's a difference between exception and error. So it might run into an exception. Then because by the nature of try and catch and by the nature of Java, every line will be run one after the other inside that block. Then if it runs this, and perhaps not likely to run into problem here because this is just creation, then in the course of passing and formatting it could run into error. Then if it runs into error here, this next line will not be executed. So if it runs into an exception here, this next line will not be executed. That means it will not return true. Then it will run the catch block, which in the catch block I've said it should catch the object of exception inside this variable exception. Actually, I'm not making use of the exception being caught, but rather I am returning false, so that I did know that logically if it runs into an exception, it's just because it wasn't able to successfully format the date. So it should tell me false. That means I'm sorry, I couldn't format it. Now, but if it was able to run successfully, then it will run to this last line of the try block, which returns true. And a catch block will not be executed if the try block was run to the last line. That means all lines in the try block was successfully executed, then the catch block will not be executed. And that's the working mechanism of try and catch block. So once it's able to format properly, then it returns true. Then that is why I came here into my process request, then call in the method that actually does my date processing, and I put it in the condition that okay, if my date check, now what I'm saying here is if my date, don't be confused with this if you are not conversant with Java yet. That means not. I said if my date check, if it returns true, then that means the true simply means it's able to format. In that case, I do not want to run this block of code. That is why I put not, so that the true will be converted to false and this block of code will not be executed, because an if block will only be executed if the if condition is true. So if it returns true, I want to convert it to false so that this will not be executed. Now if my date check returns false, that means it wasn't able to run to return true, then it ran into an exception and the catch block was executed returning false. Then if it returns false, I want it to knot it back to true so that it can be able to execute this block of code. That means if it returns false, it will take it as true, and then it's going to say that please ensure to fill in your date in this kind of format, So now then it's going to give you it's going to give you an anchor tag that actually make you to go back to the form. Now you would observe this, that once I fill in, let me try to fill in this, and let's experiment with the date. Okay, sorry. So let's kind of say my email is this. So the address, then let me pick mail and let me submit. Can you see? Please ensure to fill in your date in DDMMYY format. So because the date wasn't filled, that's why it kind of put that, because it wasn't able to format the date. The date was empty. The date doesn't contain real date that can be formatted. Now if we then come in and check that out, and we discover that okay, date was well formatted, then it is the right thing that since everything has been checked, we've checked this, and check the date, check the address, and the gender does not necessarily have to be checked, because the gender will have to be either a male or a female. No, so the gender will either be a male or a female, because the value had been specified implicitly in the code, in the front-end code. That is how to deal with radio button. You have to specify the value. The value cannot be taken derived from the input. It has to be specified. So if you are picking this, it's going to be male. If you are keeping this, it's going to be female. And mind you, you should notice that when I click male, female, male is not being clicked. When I click male, it's uncheck female and take male. That is because I actually grouped the radio button. And how do you group radio button in front end? You actually group a radio button by ensuring that the name, the value of the name attributes for each of the radio button input are the same thing. So that's how to group a radio button. So now let's now fill in a complete form by saying Amzat, okay, Biblai, and Amzat, and Adewale, and okay, email. So then let me pick the dates. Okay, no, that's not the right date, and then this is the right date. Then let me say my address, then let me pick mail, of course I'm a mail, then let me submit. Then with all these things, it's going to say congratulations, you are now a member of the I community. Say my name, Abibla Adewale Amzat, first name, middle name, last name, my gender, male, then my address and my date that is being formatted. So my date as it stands is this. So now it's been able to get to check each and every of my entry. And please mind you, I'm actually using do post. So my method, the value of my method attribute of the form is post. That is the reason why you cannot fetch from my result. You cannot fetch the request being sent. I don't mean I'm using get. All these values, all these name, gender, address value can actually be fetched from the URI so URL, which means it's not secured. So using post will hide all those details from the URL, and I can have this. And you should always remember that how do I arrive at this? It's because of my action. My action is actually based on /iapp/address. Now if I remove this and put /address alone, let's look at what the problem we are going to run into. It's going to run into a problem, I can assure you that. So but let's look at what it's going to run into. So let me just click on post submit. Then it should tell me 404 not found. Okay, it's here to propagate, and it's here to propagate. Okay, it's still doing that. Let it finish checking for suspension. Then it should tell me 404 not found. No, it's here to propagate. That's the so now it's still checking for external changes. Once it's finished checking for external changes, it's going to okay, don't waste my time. Let me just redeploy. So if I click on display, it's going to redeploy for me. And how does it achieve redeploying? It's not like it's going to restart my server. No, it's not going to restart my Tomcat server. It's not going to restart my Tomcat server. The only thing it's going to do for me is to deploy my previous one, then redeploy. So now it's redeploying. So if I click submit, it should tell me 404 not found. Okay, it should still tell me 404 not found, because that address, oh, I am still wondering why it's not doing that. Okay, checking for external change complete. So why or not are you not doing that for me? So reload, then done 404 not found. So now yeah, it's done propagating, and you can see 404 not found. The main reason why it's not saying is this: the status code 404 means not found. That means it's not being able to see this address servlet called upon localhost. Please excuse me, let me pick this call. So welcome back. As I was saying, the problem of the 404 is that it's not being able to find this address. So, and why is it like that? It is that because the HTTP, the address, which is the address servlet, is not on the localhost directly. It's actually on our IApp, and so it should actually be like this. So if I put it like this, it's going to process the servlet. At least it's going to say something to us. Can you see? It processes the servlet. You are not seeing any result because all the logics were not being processed. So that's the main reason why you are not seeing any result. The if statement and the else statement, none of them were being processed. That means that is the exact reason why you are not seeing any results. So, and if I'm to go back to the form and express my action to be iapp/address, it's going to mean that it's going to call this relative URL, it's going to call it upon the localhost. And if it calls it upon the localhost, I'll be having something like this, because if it calls this upon the localhost, then I'll be having something like this too. So actually I'll be having something like this, which works fine. So now let me save this, and then okay, save. Now it's been saved. Let's wait for it to be propagated, and let's come here. Let's come to our address.html. Let's come to our address.html. So let's come to our address.html. Okay, sorry, that's iapp/address.html. So Now, and if I'm to click on submit, then it's still okay. It's yet to propagate this, because there is something about web development. It takes time for the whole correction to sync. So now let me redeploy to force it. Let me redeploy. So it's going to undeploy the previous one, and it's going to undeploy the previous one and redeploy. Can you say deploying? So, and redeployed the new one. So can you see, okay, started application on context path, so that's cool for me. Yeah, that's cool for me. So I can just close this, and I can just, okay, this is the start page, as you can remember, and I can just put address.html and go to the form, then submit the form, and you can see now, please ensure none of the name fields are left blank. So that's it. So this action is actually to tell us the URL, which can be relative or absolute, the URL of the servlet to use to process this. So now let's come to this section, which is the web.xml. Now you should note that this ending part of the URL, this /address is very, very important. It is what I've specified here. And which is in my web.xml, whereby I've set my servlet name, to be address, and my servlet URL pattern to be address pattern. Excuse me, let me attend to this call. Okay, welcome back. So what I was saying is that this /address is not the name of the servlet, but actually the URL pattern of the servlet. So if should I change the URL pattern to any other name, then consequently I have to change that. I have to effect the change here, and consequently it is going to effect the change here. Let's experiment. So if I change it to capital letter address here, consequently I have to come here and change it. Okay, I have to come here and change it, and I have to come here and change it. So it has to be changed here, and this one too that was changed has to be saved. So, and okay, now the whole thing then will take time to sync. Otherwise you will see 404 not found. Let's take a look at it. Syncing. Okay, it's going to say 404 not found. Now, because this address has changed, so this action has changed, it's going to take time to sync. So let me redeploy to force the change. Let me redeploy. So doing that, I will undeploy the previous one, and redeploy the new one. So what I'm trying to say in essence is that this last thing you are saying here, this last item you are saying on the URI, is not the name of the servlet, but rather the name of the URL pattern of the servlet, mapped to the servlet. So it's trying to deploy it. So let's wait. So it's trying to deploy it. Let's wait. So let's go to the address.html and let's check our address out and let's click on send. Okay, now it's going to find it. You can see because I have changed it here, it has actually effected here automatically, and it is working because in my web XML my URL pattern matches. So thank you very much. That will be all for now. In the next video we will be stepping things up from here. Now have a wonderful time. See you next time. Bye.